Okay, we're continuing in the Mamer Basi Ligani Tafshin Chav Gimel. We're holding at Siv Daled, where it says Hamamshich ba Mamer. Before we go weiter, I just want to finish off one point that we learned yesterday. Yeah, review is always good. Huh? Okay, so in the last point we learned yesterday, Behamshich to the whole Harichas here, the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, that the Teva has three floors, Tachtiyim, Shniyim, and Shlishim, which means that we divide the Eilamis into three categories. Eilamis Ha'ein Saif, Eilam Ha'atzilus, and Eilamis Biyah. And we put Eilamis Biyah all into one category that's considered to be one floor. And when we say that Eilamis Saif is revealed and is mispashit, and misgala, into the lower worlds, it refers to all three worlds, Biyah together. Bria, Yitzira, Asiya together. What's the reason for this? So the Rabbi explains that Nachanami, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, three worlds, one below the other. But nevertheless, in this Mamer, the Frierdiker Rebbe is talking about the three worlds of Biyah in relation to Atzilus, that they all are expressing or are an existence of a place which is separated from the Eibishter, but they're connected directly to Atzilus, meaning that you have Bina of Atzilus, which is revealed in Bria, you have the Spheris, the Midas, that is, the Shis Sfiron, they're revealed in Yitzira, and then Oifen, which is Malchus, which is revealed in Asiya. So what's the inyan? Why over here, Dafka, in this Mamer, is he speaking about the three Eilamis together as one thing? Usually Bria, Yitzira, Asiya are three separate Eilamis, one below the other. Point is, because over here, the Ikin Akudah that the Rebbe is trying to explain is that the Chiddush of the Hispashtus of Eirein Seif and Lamata Adin Tachlis, how do we define Lamata Adin Tachlis? Into a place which is Nifrad, a place which is not Elokus, a place which is separated from the Eibishter. That's the Chiddush, that Eirein Seif is Mispashit and Mizgala even there. In that point, Biyah, all three of them are the same minion. They're all three in the Akudah of Pirud. Taking the existence of the tziyurim, of the spheres of Atzilus. The spheres of Atzilus is already a concept of Gvul to one degree or another. There's a tziyur, there's an existence of the Sai in the world of Meichen or Bina, Sai, whether it's Midis or Malchus, it's all a certain tziyur, but it's all within Elokus. And then those inyanim of Elokus, which are already certain limitations, but all within the world of Elokus, they go down further. They're mispashit further, or they come into Yesh Mayin, into the next world of Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya. In the sense of the difference, if you want to look at the general difference between Atzilus and Biyah, the general Nekuda is, this is Elokus, and this is Pirud of Elokus. This is a place which is separated. In that sense, that's one Nekuda, it's all one Inyan. That's why the Rebbe puts it here together. So, usually, b'poil mamish, if you talk about the actual development of the Eilamis, if you talk about the gilui b'poil of how one Eilam is revealed and how the next Eilam is revealed, so Bria is revealed from Atzilus, then Yitzira comes from Bria, Asiya comes from Yitzira, in some places in Chassidus it's called Chaimer, Tzura, Tikkun. You have the Etzim Chaimer, and then there's a Tzura to the Chaimer, then there's a Tikkun, it's fully prepared, so to speak, when it's finished. Right. Okay. So that's usually, but over here, the Rebbe is not focusing on the aspects of it, on the details of it, how it's misgala b'poil. That's not negeya. Over here, the nekuda is the difference between Eilam Ha'ein Saif, Eilam Ha'atzilus, and Eilam Biyah. Eilam Ha'ein Saif is Ein Saif without any tzir whatsoever. Atzilus is a world where there's already tzir of Spheris, and over there it's Iyu v'garmoi chad. It's still also chad. And that's why really in the Ayis of the Frierdiker Rebbe, he puts Eilam Ha'ein Saif and Eilam Ha'atzilus together as one thing. Because both of them are chad. Both of them, the achdus of the Eibishter is there completely. It's all a continuation of Elokus. All in contrast to Biyah, which Biyah is the place of Pirud. And that's the real taich of Ad Ein Tachlis. Ad Ein Tachlis means not only could the Eibishter come in a place which is be'ein aroich to him, to a place which is so low, that's incomparable to him. That idea of ein aroich exists in Atzilus already. In Atzilus, all the spheres in Atzilus are be'ein aroich to Elokus. Elamai in Atzilus, the Eibishter, his bleak vul, he could be mispashet even as something which is be'ein aroich to him. But the idea of the Eibishter coming down to something which is be'ein aroich is already in Atzilus. But over here the Chiddush is, the real Eirein Seif Ad Ein Tachlis is in a place of Pirud. Pirud means it's not him. separated from him. And the Eibishter is Mizgala there as well. He's Mispashet there as well. That's the seam of this inyan. Ois Dalet sort of starts a new inyan. Okay, let's continue inside. Mamshich ba Mamer. So the Friediger Rebbe continues to explain in the Mamer as follows. When it comes to the levushin of biyah, so it says in the Zohar, the minayu parchen nishmasen levnei nosha. From there, from these levushim, that's the source from where the neshamas for the people in the world fly from there. In other words, they come out, they're revealed from there. Shehem neshamas. This refers to the neshamas. Where do the neshamas come from? They come from the levushin de biyah. Okay, so the question is, why does the Friediger Rebbe bring in this inyan of neshamas here? And mamish seems like it's going off on a side note, on a side inyan. It's like this is a keta in the ois, which from here, from where he starts bringing this inyan of minay parchen nishmasa, he talks about this and explains what exactly this inyan is of the neshamas. But then, eventually, the Friediger Rebbe gets back to the flow of what he's trying to explain in this ois. He gets back to explaining yet a further idea in Lamata Adin Tachlis. That Lamata Adin Tachlis, ultimately, what does the Friediger Rebbe explain? You remember we learned this? He explains it refers to Klippe, and it refers even to Parai, Liyoyre V'niyasisini. That's the continuation of the Ois. That's the main Akudeh, to explain the Lamata Adin Tachlis even further. But in between, he puts in this point about Neshamas. That Neshamas come from the Levushin of Biyah. Why is he bringing this here? So the Rebbe says we could explain the continuation of the words of the Friediger Rebbe, why this is relevant or how this connects to the point there. Kiv and Shebechlal is Hamshech Hailula, Bechlal and the whole Hamshech of Basi Ligani. Medu, but Eidis Neshamis Yisrael, what is it really focusing on? It's all speaking about the Avodah of Yidden. Vavidasam Bamshachas Elakus Lamata, and the Avodah of Yidden to bring godliness down here in this world. Shaharei Ikke Shchina B'Tachteina Moisa, as the Mamer begins, Basi Ligani, that the Ikke, the primary presence of Shchina. Ikke Shchina, in other words, Ikke Shchina doesn't just mean primary presence, but also the Ikke level of Shchina, the deepest level of the Eibishter. Is B'Tachteina Moisa, is here below. The Hainu Eilam Hazeh, this world, Shehu Tachten Madrege Shein Tachten Lamata Mimenu, the lowest level of all the worlds, and here below, Kimavur Betanya, Ubaloshna Mamer, the expression that Friediger Rebbe says in this ice as well, B'Madreges Hayesa Achreinis V'Hayesa Tachtainis, in the last levels and in the lowest levels. That's the expression that Friediger Rebbe uses here when he speaks about Eirin Seif Lamata Mata Adin Tachlis. So he says Lamata Mata Adin Tachlis means Yesa Achreinis and Yesa Tachtainis. Okay, when the Rebbe said the Mamer, the Loshen, that the Rebbe actually said in the Mamer, I'm not sure why this is put over here into brackets. I think this point is not, I don't know, it doesn't have to be in brackets, and it's not a side point, but l'chayr, this is an Ikr Nekudah. Because there's a very big difference between the Nekudah that the Friediger Rebbe says here in this ice, and this idea of Ikr Shchina B'Tachteina Maisa. When the Rebbe said the Mamer, so the Rebbe twice said the Loshen, that not only are we speaking about the Eibishter coming down into the lowest world, but the Adrabbe, that's where Ikke Shchina B'Tachteina Maisa. On the contrary, that's where you find Ikke Shchina. What does Adrabbe mean? In other words, the Nekudah of this is Noisid Gimel, the Friediger Rebbe is discussing what the Zohar says, that Eirin Seif is Mizgala and Mispashet further and further and lower and lower. And the lower down you go, the more of a pella it is. That's the real pella of the Gilui of Eirin Seif. Fact that Eibush is Nizgala and Eilamat Silos is also an yin of Lamata Adin Tachlis, but it's not the emesin of Lamata Adin Tachlis, because it's not the real pella. The fact that Eibush is Nizgala and the lowest worlds here, Lamata Mata, that's the real pella. That's the real expression of Eirin Seif. But that's not the union of Ikke Shchina B'Tachteina Maisa. Ikke Shchina B'Tachteina Maisa is something else. That's mitzad the kavan of the Eibishter. Nes'ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu Liyus Leidir B'Tachteinim. The Nes'ava of the Eibishter is Dafke B'Tachteinim. It's not that the Tachteinim expresses a certain pella, every level expresses another pella, further pella, more of a pella, and the world below expresses the greatest pella. So therefore this expresses the Gilui of Eirin Seif. It's not any of the Gilui of Eirin Seif, it's the Kavana of the Eibishter. The Eibishter's purpose, his desire is beyond any Giluyim, beyond any Ployim. What the Eibishter's desire is Dafke B'Tachteinim. It's a different Indian. Right, so the Rebbe is saying that over here, in this ayah, B'Shas the Friediger Rebbe talks about the Inyan of the neshama is coming from Olam Biyah, or from the levushim of Biyah, what is this connected to? It's connected not only to this inyan of the Gilui of Ein Sof. Where is the real Pella of Gilui of Ein Sof? Dafke and B'yais Achrenis and Yais Tachteines. So just like that's true b'negeh to Gilui Ein Sof, the same thing is also regarding the Neshamas, that the Neshamas come dafke from the levushim of Biyah as well. But the fact that the Neshamas come from the levushim of Biyah is related to the beginning of the Mamer, which says that the Eibishter is dafke b'tachteinim. Ikesh chine b'tachteinim haisa mitzad the kavana. It's a different l'chayda. That's an additional point, a different point. Okay, let's continue in the lashon of the Mamer. So behechrich loima shekol anyonim yeshnam gam etzel b'nei Yisrael. So since everything we speak about b'negeh to all giluyim is all for what? It's for the purpose of the aveda of a yid. The theme of the entire Mamer was the Rebbe. You read over the lashon of the Mamer, it sounds like that the Rebbe is saying that hey, the Friedrich Rebbe speaks about the aveda of the neshama of a yid. So therefore, we must say that we could find some kind of relevance how all these inyanim play out in the aveda of a yid. That's not only the fact that there must be a message that we could find how it plays out. All these giluyim, behechrich loimar, that this is found by Yidden, that this inyan, if the whole inyan is for the Aved of a Yid, if Yidden are the ones that the world is created for them, and Yidden are the ones that fulfill the kavanah of the Eibishter, the true kavanah of the essence of the Eibishter is dafke in Yidden and through Yidden, whether mitzad the special connection of Yidden after the Eibishter, or mitzad the fact that dafke Yidden are the ones that fulfill the kavanah al yena of diri b'tachtainim. So all of these inyanim that he speaks about, all the levels of giluyim, is dafke through Yidden, and you have to have this inyan b'negeh to Yidden itself. So the Friedrich Rebbe explains that this idea of levushim dibiyah is shaykh to the neshamas of the Yidden as well. Keep a levush in the biyah, and that's why he brings what it says in the Zohar regarding the levushim of biyah, the minayu and the parchen neshmasen levnei nasha sheheim neshamas. That from these levushim of biyah, the neshamas fly. This is where the neshamas are revealed from. Sheheim neshamas. Mamshich levaya, and the Friedrich Rebbe continues and explains about this. Sheroiv neshamas heim neshamas the biyah. That most neshamas actually come from biyah. So this lashon that the Zohar says, "Minayhu parchen nishmasen levnei nasha." I'm not sure if there's more that what it says in the Zohar there regarding the neshamas. Is this all that it says there, or it says other details? But if you just look at these words, I didn't see the whole Zohar. But if you just look at these words, "Minayhu parchen nishmasen levnei nasha," which means from them, from these levushim. This is where the neshamas fly from. This is where they are revealed from. So it's mashma from here. So how could you say that? How could you say that neshamas come from the levushim of biyah? There are many different levels of neshamas. Some neshamas come from the levushim of the biyah. You can minayu. This is where they come from. So that Friedrich Rebbe explains this. Sheroiv neshamas and neshamas the biyah, because most neshamas today are neshamas. Not only today actually, and even in earlier generations, are neshamas the biyah. There's only one in a generation. Even in the earlier generations, it was only a chad bedara. A few, he says, Yachad Bedara, or there are very few individuals in earlier generations. Hem neshamas da Atzilus. There are neshamas of Atzilus. Al v'roiv neshamas, hem neshamas de biyah. Most neshamas are neshamas de biyah. So I'm not sure if this is connected or not, but when I heard the Rebbe saying this Mamer, and the lashon that the Rebbe actually said, it sounds like what the Rebbe is saying is that just like b'negeya to this inyan of Oirin Seif Lamata Adin Tachlis, it's not only that the Eibishter extends further and lower, and the lower you go, the more of a pella is revealed. When you say there's more of a pella revealed, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that the place of Eirin Seif is dafke b'tachtainim. The expression of the true pella of Eirin Seif comes out with tachtainim. But what is it Rebbe adding here? Another nekuda, ikeshchine. The ikeshchine is dafke b'tachtainim ois. Mitzad the kavanah of the Eibishter, it's dafke below over here. So the same thing is b'negeh to the neshamas. It's not only that you have neshamas that come from various different levels of giluyim, and they're developed from another one level that could be neshamas of Atzilus, and in Atzilus Gufa there's various different levels of neshamas, and then you have neshamas of Biyah, and then Biyah Gufi, you have a neshama of Bria, neshama of Yitzir, you have all kinds of levels of neshamas, and it so happens to be that Roiv of the neshamas are from Biyah. The fact that Roiv neshamas are from Biyah is not by mistake, it's by design. Who decide? Why is it that most neshamas are from Biyah? That's the way the Eibishter designed it to be. Most neshamas are low neshamas. What's taka the pshat in this? Why are most neshamas of Biyah? The Eibishter wants the Yidden to be in this world and to struggle, to be neshamas. What's really the difference between neshamas of Biyah and neshamas of Atzilus regarding Aveda B'Payil? A neshama d'Atzilus is here in this world, and even when it's here in this world, it's still in Atzilus, and it doesn't have to struggle with all the nisyanis of Elam Hazeh. Elam Hazeh is not teifis mokum so much. Like the lashon that it says when you get to Moshe Rabbeinu, we're learning in this week's parasha. The whole Hamshich here is all going to be about Moshe. Then when it says Moshe lepasik taime begavayu, twice it says the name Moshe. It's the same Moshe in Atzilus, the same Moshe here in this world. And Moshe Rabbeinu is here in this world that is in Atzilus. So why are most neshamas of Biyah? What's the point of most neshamas being neshamas of Biyah? Neshamas of Biyah means when they enter into this world, the realities of Elam Hazeh, the Gashmis of Elam Hazeh are real, are teifis mokim, pull you, and that's the instinctive things that you're involved in. Why? What's the kavanah in this? Because b'negei the kavanah sabriya, we say that ikke shchina b'tachteinim haisa, so too b'negei to the neshamas, everything that there is b'negei to the creation is all for the purpose of the neshamas. It's all b'negei to the neshamas of Yidden. So the same thing is also b'negei to the neshamas. That roiv neshamas are dafka neshamas of Biyah. I think that's the beer of the Hamshchenia. When you read it the way it's put over here, it doesn't say it in this way. But when I heard the way the Rebbe said the Mamer, I think that's what the Rebbe is trying to say. Again, that the roiv of the neshamas being from Biyah is related to this. The takke ikeshchina is dafke b'tachtayim.
So they can neshamas are the neshamas down here.
Yeah, dafke these low neshamas. No, we are the generation that's going to bring Mashiach, right? We are the generation that's going to bring Mashiach. Why Taka? He asked the question, L'chayre, if we are the generation that's bringing Mashiach, shouldn't we be the holiest and highest neshamas and greatest neshamas? So we always say that, the lashon of the Gemara, that Rebbe would always quote, Ach shadara bitmiyah, that the lower the generations come, the lower the neshamas are. And we're like the midgets on the giant's shoulders. In other words, we're the little tiny neshamas that have no sensitivity to Elokus, and our life is just gashmius and chumrius and Elam Hazeh. And we are the ones, these roiv neshamas. Here, this is the real kavanah. So what the Rebbe is saying is, yeah, exactly. Adarabah, dafke these types of neshamas, that Elam Hazeh is real. So we can make the dira b'tachtainim. The neshamas of Atzilus, the neshamas that are the great tzaddikim, they're not going to bring down the Shechina Lamata, because even when they're here Lamata, their functioning, their connection, their real reality is all Elokus. And this whole Elam Hazeh is also just helping them be more connected to Atzilus. They utilize the Elam Hazeh just to be more connected to the Eibishter, which is higher than this world. That's the way they serve the Eibishter. Dafke Reiv neshamas, which serve the Eibishter here in Elam Hazeh, and tak and tachteinim, tak and low things. That fulfills the Ikke, the Adarab, the Ikke Shchen b'tachteirim haisa. I believe that's the Hamshchenia there. Okay, the Rebbe doesn't focus so much more on the singing, but that's the lashon where I heard the Rebbe saying it. So the Rebbe brings now here from the Alter Rebbe, a word from the Alter Rebbe in Lekutei Torah that explains this b'negei to Moshe Rabbeinu. The Ikke b'negei to Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's see. Ve'inyan b'zeh. So the pshat over here is K'fi shemavai Rabbeinu Azakon Baruch HaYosef b'Lekutei Torah. Alter Rebbe explains this in the Mamer Lekutei Torah. This is a Mamer Shir HaShirim. It's a beard on the Mamer of Yoinasi in Shir HaShirim. As the Rebbe himself, that you have over here in the beginning, the Rebbe wrote the Mara Makaimis for this Mamer. So the Rebbe wrote that this is from the Yoinasi in Shir HaShirim. Did they bring it here? The Ksaviyat Kodesh, the Rebbe wrote it. Where? Yeah, but the actual Ksaviyat Kodesh, the Rebbe, okay, they don't have it here. In the Sefer they have it. Okay. The Rebbe would write the Mara Makaimis for the Mamer. So this is the Alter Rebbe's word. Shenishmas Moshe Rabbeinu sharsha me'atzmius chachmila. What's the shirish of Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama from the atzmius of chachmila? Which means that not only was Moshe Rabbeinu a neshama of Atzilus, right? We speak many times about the fact that there's a neshama of Atzilus, but in Atzilus itself, from Chachmad Atzilus, and in Chachmad Atzilus itself, from the atzmius of Chachma of Atzilus. Which is a very high level in Atzilus itself. Okay, exactly how to define Atzmius of Chachmeh, there's different things that can be said about it, but right now let's leave it the way it is. The very essence of Chachmeh Yilah of Atzilus. Shezehu Makar HaTorah. This is the source of Torah. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu is higher than Torah. He's the source of Torah. Not only is he higher, but the lashon over here is he's the source of Torah. In other words, the fact that Torah was given through Moshe Rabbeinu is because being that he is completely higher than the Chachma of Torah, so the Torah is going to be given dafka through him. Hainu l'mayla ma Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu is higher than Torah. Share Chachma sa Torah, he neivlus Chachma. What's the Chachma of Torah? That's a lower level in Chachma. That's Neivlis Chachma. Neivlis literally means the droplets of Chachma. It's dripping, it comes down. In other words, it's a certain revealed aspect of Chachma. Shalmaila. Mamer Azal, as it says this lashon in the Medrash, Neivlis Chachma Shalmaila Torah. The Neivlis, the droplets of the Chachma, that's Torah. So because Moshe Rabbeinu is the Maker of Chachma, he's the source of Chachma, he's the essence of Chachma, so therefore the Torah is being given through him. As you understand, the Neivlis, the droplets, the revelation of Torah comes from and through the source of Torah, the Maker of Torah. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. And therefore it says by Moshe Rabbeinu, being that he himself, what's his level? His level is the source of Torah, the essence of Chachma. So it says about Moshe Rabbeinu, kvad peh, kvad lashon. Kvad peh, kvad lashon literally means that he couldn't talk. Kvad peh, kvad lashon, he couldn't talk. What's the pshat kvad peh, kvad lashon? So it doesn't mean just begashmis. It's reflecting beruchnius, that Moshe Rabbeinu was on such a high level, beyond revelation, beyond expression. Kedisa b'zayar, so the Zayar says about this, kvad peh, legabi reise de bal peh. Kvad peh means that in relation to Torah shebal peh, the revealed part of Torah, the oral Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu is a kvad peh, meaning he's the source of this. He's higher than this. He's higher than the revelation of Torah shebal peh. And kvad lashon means legabe Torah shebiksav, that Moshe Rabbeinu is higher than the revelation of Torah shebiksav. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't lower himself down. That to bring down from the essence, from the very essence of Chachma, to bring down to the revelation of Chachma, Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't lower himself down. And this was a special koyach that the Eibishter gave Moshe Rabbeinu, that from the essence of Chachma, that the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu, even though you're a kvad peh, kvad lashon, but Adarabah, Dafka, you are going to be the one to reveal the Torah. Dafka, you are going to be the one to go to speak to Paray. Right? That's next week's parsha, Parshas Veda, the whole discussion between Moshe Rabbeinu and the Eibishter. I can't go to Paray, I'm a kvad peh, kvad lashon. The Eibishter tells Moshe Rabbeinu, no, Dafka, you should go to Paray. The Rebbe speaks about it, Barichis. And then, when you get to Torah, that Dafka Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that could reveal the Torah. And so it's interesting, if you look over here in the lashon that the Rebbe is saying, there's sort of two opposite points that you have in the lashon that the Rebbe said here. Now again, they put this thing into parentheses, and I'm not sure why, because when the Rebbe said it, the Rebbe repeated this. The Rebbe said this twice. On one hand, the Rebbe is saying that because Moshe Rabbeinu is higher than Chachma, or higher than the Chachma of Torah, he's the very essence of Chachma, so therefore the Torah has to be given dafka through him. Only he's the one, he's higher than Torah, he's the source of the very essence of Torah, he's the essence of Chachma, so dafka he could give the Torah. On one hand. At the same time, the Rebbe is saying, but Moshe Rabbeinu is the kvad peh and kvad lashon, because he's so much higher, he's beyond revelation, so therefore he can't express, he can't bring down, he can't give the Torah. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of two opposite points. Is Moshe Rabbeinu the one that could give the Torah? And Dafka, he has to be the one to give the Torah? At the same time we're saying fakert. No, Moshe Rabbeinu is the kvad peh, kvad lashon. Okay, that's okay. We'll stop over here today. But like I said, the Rebbe said this nekuda, that the Rebbe was very much madgish this nekuda, that the Torah has to be given dafka through Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, fine. I'm of Basi, Ligani, Tafshin Chav Gimel. Maybe a tiny drop. No, too much, it's going to get too cold, too hot. Okay. So we're holding in the paragraph V'Inyim B'Zeh, where it says U'Mamshich Sham. Right? Okay, the first word in the line is Chachma, in this contrast. Okay, so the point that we're learning here about is when the Friedrich Rebbe brings the idea of Olam Izbiyah, which are the Levushim, he immediately adds from another place in Zoyar, where he says, and from these Levushim of Biyah, the Neshamis are coming from, or flying from there. The source of the Neshamis comes specifically from the world of Biyah. And the Rebbe explains, that the Friedrich Rebbe actually already says, that what this means is that the Roiv of the Neshamis come from Biyah, even though there are Neshamis that come from Atzilus, but that's Chad B'Dara. Chad B'Dara. And he says even in Deiris Harishayim, it's Chad B'Dara, but most Neshamis are from Biyah. So here, the Rebbe quotes from L'Kutei Torah, the Nekuda that Alter Rebbe there explains about this, when he get to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what we learned yesterday. That Moshe Rabbeinu, he comes from Atzmi is Chachmi Lo. because he's from Atzmi's Chachmi Law, so therefore he's higher than Torah. Torah, it says in the Medrash, is Neivles Chachma Shalamayla. It's just droplets of Chachma. It's or sometimes it says the Lashon in the Zohar, Araisa me Chachma Nafkes, that it's only coming out from Chachma. Whereas Moshe Rabbeinu is the Etzem of Chachma. And the Rebbe brought here that this is also the explanation of what it says about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he was a Kvad Peh and Kvad Lashon, because the distance of the Etzem of Chachma to the Neivles of Chachma is very far. So therefore you have to have a greater power to connect and to be megala from the Mokir, from the Etzem of Chachma to the Neivlis of the Chachma, to the Gili of the Chachma. What is the difference between the Etzem of Chachma and the Neivlis of Chachma? So in Likutei Torah there, if you look, he says that the taich of Neivlis Chachma means when a person is into the inyan of Chachma and he has all discussion and the whole depth of the inyan. In the inyan of Chachma itself, you could have a Svara Lakan and a Svara Lakan, all kinds of different ideas, and they're all true. They're, in the world of Chachma, they're all the Svara to Elu V'Elu Dibur Elikim Chayim. What's the Taich Neivlis? Neivlis means the Maskana, the conclusion. After a person is sort of finished with the whole discussion and he comes down to the Maskana, the Halacha B'Poyel, and in Torah that means the Chelik of Torah, Nigla de Torah, which discusses Kasher, Posel, Tomei, Torah, all these Halachas and Maskanas B'Poyel, that's the Neivlis of Chachma. Chachma itself is higher than a Maskana. Chachma itself is the world of Seichel, which is removed of any application. Neivlis is the level of Nigla de Torah. That's how he teaches it. What's the idea of Atzmi's Chachmi Law? Atzmi's Chachmi Law is not down the discussion of Chachma, the Shakel V'Tarya, that's higher than the Maskana. Atzmi's Chachmi Law refers to the level of Chachma which is connected to Keser. Chachma comes and takes from Keser. Chachma me'ayin to Motzeh. Chachma is connected to Ayin. And the very essence of Chachma is where the Keser is Meir Begili in Chachma. In every level, you always have the Pnimius and the Chitzonius. The Pnimius of Chachma and the real Etzem of Chachma is directly connected to Keser. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. On the other hand, Torah, over here we're speaking specifically about Nigla de Torah, is Punkt Fakert, the level of Chachma, the Maskana of the Chachma, which is already the Hashpa of the Seichel, coming down to the Maskana in the Maisa B'Poyel, or actually to a Midah, the Hashpa of Chachma into Zah and then into Malchus. That's how he teaches it there. So again, as I said before, this idea of Moshe Rabbeinu being a Kvad Peh and Kvad Lashon means that the Etzem of Chachma is so high and so removed of the Maskana, of the Maisa B'Poyel. When someone is involved in the depth and the Etzem of the Emes of Chachma, so then any ashpa of that Chachma klape chutz coming down is so removed that you have to have a special koyach of the Eibishter to give Moshe Rabbeinu the power to be nizgala. That the makir from Chachma, the Etzem of Chachma, should come down into the Maskana, into the Hashpa, into the lower Dargis.
Is this lowest Chachma anything like Das? It sounds like it's already like applied.
I don't know if it. I'm not sure if it's connected to Das. Not sure how it relates exactly to Das. Because sometimes it actually says that Moshe Rabbeinu is related to the level of Das. Not sure. It doesn't bring up their Das in the Mamer. Okay, so let's continue where we're holding. Mamshich Sham, Alter Rebbe there continues in the Maimon Likutei Torah. Shagam Shuzeu B'chinas Moshe. Although we're saying that this level of a neshama that comes from Atzmi's Chachma. So this is Moshe Rabbeinu Ach K'moi Kain, but similar Yesh Gam Kein Neshamas Gevayis Ma'it. But similar, there are other neshamas that are on a very high level. Sheyesh Behem Mibchinas Moshe. They also have somewhat of this level of Moshe. This is what we find in the Gemara. Rav Safra comments to Rava regarding something he said. He wanted to show him that he approves of what he said, or he wanted to praise him. So he said, Moshe Shapik Ka'amrit Chula. Moshe, you've said well. Meaning it refers to Rava as Moshe. Because it's not stam an expression that he's saying over something from Teiras Moshe, or that he's stam giving him a praise that he's like Moshe Rabbeinu. But it's true. Rava has in him this neshama that's on the level similar to Moshe Rabbeinu. What are these neshamas? These neshamas in other generations that are also like Moshe Rabbeinu, they're referred to in the Zohar as the brothers or the friends of the Eibishter. What's the pshat, brothers and friends of the Eibishter? When it says there Mokayim, what level of Mokayim, what level of Darga, of Holocaust is that talking about? The pshat is Shenim Shechu Miyichod Abba Ve'ima Datzilus. These are neshamas that are not only in the world of Atzilus. B'chlal we know, and very often it brings that there's neshamas of Atzilus, and then there's, like he says, there's roiv of the neshamas that comes from Biyah. But here the Rebbe is saying the neshamas that are called achim v'reim l'makayim are not just from Atzilus, but in Atzilus itself, they come from the union of Abba v'Ima, of Chochmah and Bina. Usually when we speak about the Leda of neshamas, it comes from the yichud of Zah and Malchus. But over here we're talking about a higher yichud, the yichud of Abba and Ima. So because they come from the union of Abba v'Ima, so therefore these neshamas are referred to as Achim l'Zod Atzilus. So therefore they are brothers to Zod, to the Midas of Atzilus. Just like the Midas of Atzilus. They also come from a hashpah of Abba v'Ima. Right? The Midas come from Chochmah and Bina. So too, these neshamas also come from a yichud of Abba v'Ima, but for some reason, they're not exactly the same. I'm not exactly sure what's the difference between them and Zod Atzilus. In Likutei Torah, actually, I don't know if it's in Likutei Torah itself or it's in a Haggadah that I saw in the Mamer. He says there that Zod Atzilus is called the Achagodel. It's an older brother. In other words, it's on a higher level than these neshamas that are called their brothers. Achim v'reim l'makayim, meaning that makayim refers to Zod Atzilus, and then these neshamas are the younger brother, so to speak, of the level of Zod Atzilus.
So Zod Atzilus is higher.
Yeah, that's what it's mashma there. Correct. Okay. V'heim l'mayla mepchinas Torah, and these neshamas, not only Moshe Rabbeinu, but these neshamas that are called Achim v'reim l'makim, they are higher than the level of Torah. So these last few words, v'heim l'mayla mepchinas Torah, is actually very hard to understand. Why are they higher than the level of Torah? He just explained before, what's Torah? Torah is neivlois of Chochmah. It's droplets of Chochmah. And I explained before, that Alter Rebbe clearly says in Likutei Torah. What does that mean? When you have the ashpah of Chochmah into the Midas, which is the maskana of the Seichel, that is mashpia into the Midas, that's Torah. So if these neshamas are brothers to the level of Zod Atzilus, meaning they're also outside of Chochmah. They're already somehow to some degree on the same level as the Midas and Atzilus. So why are they Lamaila? Why are they higher than the level of Torah? Okay, so I saw over there in the Haggadah, this Mamer, it's printed in the back of Likutei Torah. So he asks this question. He says that it's in a moving cloud, what the Alter Rebbe is saying here, and he gives two answers. The first answer, he says that when it says here this Lashon Lamaila Mepchinas Torah, it doesn't mean higher than Torah Shebiksav. He mentioned before that there's Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh. When he says here that they are higher than Torah, he's saying that they're higher than Torah Shebal Peh. What's the difference between Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh? Torah Shebiksav is Neivlois of Chochmah, the droplets of Chochmah that comes into Zah. The Torah Shebal Peh is the droplets of Chochmah that goes down from Zah into Malchus. It's only that drop that's Nizgala through Malchus on a lower level. That's why it's Torah Shebal Peh. Peh means Malchus, right? So therefore, these neshamas, they're talking not like Moshe Rabbeinu, which was Atzmius Chochmah, and he's higher than Torah Shebiksav. They're only brothers to Zah, Achim v'Reim l'Mokayim, and therefore they're higher than Torah Shebal Peh. That's the taich that he says there.
Until we find somewhere else, then we go back one more level of Torah Shebal Peh, because some higher source in Torah Shebiksav.
It's also true.
It's true.
Okay. One second. Let's just finish it. I'll try to explain a little bit why the Rebbe is getting into all these details here. Okay. All to confuse you. Okay. But there's another pshat he says there, a big arichas. I'm not 100% sure what he says, but it looks like he's trying to say that there is room to say that these neshamas that are achim v'reim l'makayim are actually even higher than Torah Shebiksav. Even though they come from Yichud, Abba, Ve'ima, and they're not exactly on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu himself, which is the Atzmius of Chochmah, but nevertheless, somehow they're more directly related to the Etzem of Chochmah, and therefore they're higher than the Neivlis Chochmah. It says there a hezbollah. I don't know 100% the touch, but I think that's the point that he's trying to say there. Okay, let's go weiter. We're not done yet. There's a kama dargis in the neshamas in Atzilus Gufa. I'm sure you're interested in knowing about this. What are all these levels in the neshamas of Atzilus? You've always heard about them. You want to know, what is it all about?
Going to a psychologist and he's helping us figure ourselves out.
Mamish. Amnam haneshamas hanemshachem mizivug zund Atzilus. Then there are other neshamas that also come from Atzilus. They come from a zivug of Zund Atzilus. There's a union between Zah and Malchus of Atzilus, so it's also l'chayre neshamas of Atzilus. So the Rebbe says no, they're not neshamas of Atzilus, because harei leidasam hulaylam abriya. Their birth is in the world of Bria. If they come from Zah and Malchus, so what's Malchus? Malchus is the last level of Atzilus, and therefore when it's mashpia, when it gives birth, the birth of these neshamas is already in the world of Bria. Okay. Va'af lefi ma shekasav b'makom acher. Now the Rebbe adds that this itself could be divided into two levels, because in another place it says shegam mizivug zund atzilus, that even from this union between Zah and Malchus of Atzilus, neildim v'nimshachem gam kein lefa'amim. Sometimes you will have a birth and a hamshacha of neshamas gevayis moed, very high neshamas, and a crime neshamas datzilus mamish, and they're also referred to as neshamas datzilus mamish, meaning that their birth is still in the world of Atzilus. Sometimes the zivug of zon, the birth of those neshamas is in bria. Actually, that sounds from what it says here. That's usually the birth of the neshamas of zon is in bria. But sometimes lefamim you have neshamas gevayis moed, and the birth of those neshamas is in Atzilus. However, kiven shesharshan mizivug zunda atzilus, since these neshamas they are still born from the union of Zah and Malchus of Atzilus, imkein einon ela tipo achas hanimsheches mimoichin de zon. So their connection to moichin of Atzilus, to the chachma of Atzilus, is just a tipa achas, one droplet. So in other words, it goes from the Moichin of Atzilus into Zah, into Malchus. So even if their birth is still in the world of Atzilus, but it's still very far from Moichin Atzilus. So therefore, they cannot be placed in the category to be similar to the neshamas of Moshe Rabbeinu. There's the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is Atzmi's Chachma. Then you have the neshamas which are Achim V'Reim. They come from the yichud of Abba v'Ima. So even though they're not exactly on the same level as Moshe Rabbeinu, but they still are similar to Moshe Rabbeinu. But then when you have the yichud of the Zah and Malchus of Atzilus, even if the birth of these neshamas is still in the world of Atzilus, they're not in that category of Moshe Rabbeinu, because they're just taking one tip of the Moichin. V'ha-Teire hi etzem Chabad the zon d'atzilus mamish. What's Teire? The source of Teire comes from the etzem of Chabad that is mashpia and Tizah and Malchus of Atzilus. So that's higher than one tippa. You have the hashpah that comes just by one tippa that goes through Zah and then Malchus and to the birth of the neshamas. But Teire is etzem Chabad the zon d'atzilus mamish, meaning that Teire is higher than the levels of these neshamas. Okay. There's etzem Chabad the zon. Okay, one second. The conclusion l'chayra from what it comes out of it here is that in the neshamas of Atzilus Gufa, there's kama v'kama dargas. How many levels do we have over here? In the neshamas of Atzilus, you have Moshe Rabbeinu himself, which is Atzmi's Chachma. That's the highest level. Then you have the neshamas like Rav Safra told Rav Moshe Shapika Amrit, Achim V'Reim L'Mokim. Those neshamas that are called like brothers to the Eibishter. That's similar to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's a second level. And then you have the neshamas that come from Yichud Zon. And in Yichud Zon itself, there are two dargas. There's the Yichud Zon that those neshamas are born in Atzilus itself. And then you have the Yichud Zon, which are the neshamas that are born in Bria. So there are four different levels of neshamas that the Rebbe spoke about here. This is all before we come to the roiv of the neshamas. None of these go into the category of roiv of the neshamas. Roiv of the neshamas are neshamas de biyah. L'chayre, even the level where the Rebbe said that it's a yichud, the union of Zah and Malchus, and the birth of that yichud is in Bria, that's still not the roiv of neshamas, which are in biyah, meaning that they come from a yichud, which is in biyah itself. As the Rebbe continues here, so if we're saying they're already in Atzilus itself, there's a level of neshamas that are not on the level that's related to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they're lower than Teire. Most definitely, kol shara neshamas, shein neshamas di biyah mamish. All other neshamas, they are neshamas di biyah mamish, meaning that they're not from Yichud Zah and Malchus of Atzilus. Not that they're born, that their gilu, their revelation is in biyah, but their mamish, their makir, their the Yichud of these neshamas is in biyah mamish. V'vaday shehem lamata min haTeire. Definitely, they are below Teire. And regarding these neshamas, it says in the Zayar, the usual lashon that it says that Yidden, how do Yidden connect to the Eibishter? Through Teire. Meaning Teire is higher than Yidden, and Yidden have to connect to the Eibishter through Teire. By Moshe Rabbeinu, by the higher neshamas, it's the other way around. Moshe Rabbeinu is higher than Teire, and Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that's the source of Teire. But over here, these neshamas connect to the Eibishter through Torah. Huh? Balt the Rebbe is going to explain soon the connection of Yidden to Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is the Rebbe going through this whole arichas over here? What's the Snam to fill up the page? What's Snam? If he's quoting from Likutei Torah, so he's quoting the whole Mamer. What's the inyan that the Rebbe is bringing over here? This whole arichas. It seems to me, I'm not sure about this, that it's similar to the discussion that the Rebbe had before. How did we get into this whole subject of neshamas in the first place? We're talking about Erein Seif Lamata Adin Tachlis, Benegei to Gilui Elokus in the world. And then the Rebbe said that whatever we see Benegei to in Gilui Elokus in the world applies to neshamas. That the same thing is by a neshama because everything is created for the neshamas. All the Gilui Elokus in the world is for the neshamas. So if we say regarding Erein Seif, that the place where Erein Seif is really fully revealed, the real pella of Erein Seif is Dafka Lamata Adin Tachlis. And not only that, Iker Shchin is B'tachtainim, so it's the same thing with neshamas as well. That the Iker of the Reiv of the neshamas is in Biyah. So l'chayre, when the Rebbe is trying to explain this idea, that Reiv of neshamas and neshamas is the Biyah. Who are the neshamas that are Biyah? The neshamas of Biyah are the low neshamas. They are the Lamata Mata Adin Tachlis. Or the Lashon of the Friedrich Rebbe, Yesach Reinis and Yesach Tachtainis, the lowest neshamas. So the Rebbe is trying to point out, similar to what we said before, Benigeh to say the Rishtalshlis. Maybe you'll say that Lamata Adin Tachlis refers to Eilam Misa'ei Seif. No, it's not that. That's not a Pella. Maybe it refers to Eilam Atzilos. No, that's also not a Pella. Where's the Lamata Adin Tachlis? Dafke in Biyah. Similar over here, the Rebbe, I'm not sure how it exactly parallels to the point that the Rebbe said before, but similar over here, even in the world of Atzilus itself, there's already various levels of neshamas. At kedei kach, they're very, very far from each other. The level of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is a neshama d'Atzilus, and the level of the lowest level of neshama d'Atzilus, which is the yichud zun of Atzilus, which is nailad into Bria, is very far from the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is higher than Torah, and those neshamas are lower than Torah. So in Atzilus itself, you have already 4 different dargis of neshamas. So you may say that the taich of the idea of Lamata Adin Tachlis, or Yesach Reinis, Yesach Tachtenis regarding neshamas, refers to somewhere in Atzilus, in contrast to Moshe Rabbeinu, which is Atzmius Chachma. So you have the yichud of Zunda Atzilus, that's already a very low level. So the Rebbe says, no. Taka, it's very low, very far from Moshe Rabbeinu, and they are below Torah. Moshe is higher than Torah, but that's not the emes of Pshat. Just like we said before, Yesach Reinis and Yesach Tachtainis, that's the real Lamata Adin Tachlis, the same benegei to neshamas. The neshamas of Biyah are neshamas the Biyah Mamish, which is outside of Atzilus. Neshamas that are the Yichud and their whole existence is all in Biyah Mamish.
Could we say, by Matan Torah, we say Moshe Rabbeinu went up, and then there was, there was standing by, I forgot his name. He was there by the harbor at a lower level, and then there was Zakanim at a lower level.
Aaron and Zakanim.
Aaron and Zakanim, and then there was.
It refers to these various levels of neshamas that the Rebbe is talking about over here.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah, could be. Okay, that's the Nikud over here. Okay, and it's also, I think it's also related to the point that the Rebbe said before. Again, I think that somehow what the Rebbe is saying here parallels the point that the Rebbe spoke about before. Before, when the Rebbe spoke about Eilam Misa'ei Seif and Atzilus, so the Rebbe brought the famous lashon that it says, Iyu v'chayoy echad, Iyu v'garmoy echad. The achdus of the Eibishter and Atzilus has 2 levels. There's the achdus of the Eibishter, the Eiris of Atzilus. Generally speaking, Eiris is before you have any defined seer. Before it's mamish metzias of something, it's just revelations of godliness. And then you have Iyu v'garmoy echad. Garmoy refers to the kelim, where it's defined already. There's chesed, gvura, and so on. And even there you have the achdus of the Eibishter. Right? That's the point that the Rebbe spoke about before when he was explaining the difference between Eilam Misa'ei Seif and Eilam Atzilus. Over here, when the Rebbe speaks about the various different levels of the neshamas, what's in general the point that the Rebbe is showing you? That there's a yichud of avah, there's chachmeh, there's chachmeh and bina, a yichud of chachmeh and bina, and then there's zun, zoh and malchus. It does say in some places in Chassidus, a pshat, that the Mekabalim said that this inyan of Iyu v'chayoy and Iyu v'garmoy also relates in Atzilus itself. Iyu v'chayoy refers to the moichin, chachmeh and bina, and Iyu v'garmoy refers to the midas, to zoh, maybe even zoh and malchus. That's how you explain. The difference is not only between Eiris and Kalim, but the difference is between Chachma and Bina. Over there it's Iyu v'chayoy, and in Midas is Iyu v'garmoy. And this concept, I mean, we learned about this in you many, many times, that the difference between Chachma and Bina of Atzilus, or Zunda Atzilus, is not just a difference of like one level, the next level, but it's a completely different world. Just like in a person, Seichel and Midas are very far from each other, and they're almost two opposites. The idea of Seichel is where a person is looking for the emes, where the emes is shining, where you're interested in knowing the truth objectively. How it applies to you, your yeshus, how it applies to your mitzias is not negeya and Seichel. On the other hand, Midas is punkt verkehrt. Midas is, what do I feel about this? How does this relate to me? How does this apply to my mitzias? Al derech zeh, in Atzilus Gufa, you have these two levels. There's Chachma and Bina and Midas. So when we speak about the difference between Yichud Ava and Yichud Zun in Atzilus, it's two completely different worlds in Atzilus Gufa. At kedei kach, that you could divide it, that this is Yiyu v'chayayi and this is Yiyu v'garmai. And still, what the Rebbe is saying is, but it's still all in Atzilus. It's still all in the world of Elokus. Similar to what the Rebbe said before, but that's still all in the world of Atzilus, so that's not the Lamata Adin Tachlis. Even the Zah and even Malchus, the real Lamata Adin Tachlis is the Neshamas de Biyah. Okay, let's continue another few lines over here. V'zeu gam kein mashem mavayir ba Mamer. So this also explains the Lashon that the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Mamer. Sheruv and Neshamas hein, Neshamas de Biyah. Most neshamas in this world come from biyah. So he's talking about these neshamas, the biyah mamish. V'rak chad b'dore sarishayim and neshamas da Atzilus. So only one in a generation, even in the earlier generations, is the neshama of Atzilus. B'frat b'dore seinu, especially in the later, in our generations, harei bevadei rak chad b'dore. Definitely, it's only chad b'dore, it's only one individual that is the neshama of Atzilus. And the Rebbe gives a different shot of what Chad B'dara means. Chad B'dara doesn't just mean one individual in the generation, but Hainu Chad Sha'olav Oimit Kol Adar. The type of Chad B'dara means one individual that on him stands the entire generation. But what does it mean that on him stands the entire generation? Kamoi, Moshe, just like by Moshe B'dara, by Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation, Shahaya Shakol Keneged Shishim Riboy B'nei Yisrael. So Moshe Rabbeinu, he is Shakol, his neshama is as powerful as all of the Shishim Riboy Yidden. It really means that Moshe Rabbeinu is the essence of all the neshamas. He's the Atzmius of Chachma. And that Atzmius of Chachma includes in it all the neshamas. Misaf, when you speak about the Sheirish of the neshamas, and he says that his neshamas the Biyah, Reiv of neshamas of Biyah, really the Sheirish of all neshamas comes Yisrael Olav Machshava. Right? Where do all Yidden come from? How can you say it's neshamas the Biyah? It says on every single Yid, Yisrael Olav Machshava. So really, Moshe Rabbeinu, which comes from Atzmius Chachmilah, his neshama is kailal and is the makar of all the neshamas of Yidden. Elamai, the chiddush here is, and it says that there b'feidish in Lekutei Torah, that by Moshe Rabbeinu, not only is he l'mayla from Atzmius Chachmilah, even when he comes down lamata, he doesn't get affected by all the levels of Seder Ishtalshlos. He remains below in the same intensity of Atzmius Chachmilah. All the other neshamas, they also come from Yisrael Olav Machshava, but they go through all these different levels and they get affected by every level, and that sort of defines their existence. So the neshama, there's a yirida, and it's in the neshama. But really, all the neshamas come from their kolol in Moshe Rabbeinu. As is explained elsewhere with Pirush HaKasav in the Taich of what Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ha'noichi arisi es kol ha'amazeh, that I give birth to all these people, to all the Yidden. Kasha Yisa Ayman es hayainik, like a Ayman, like someone that raises a child, that feeds a child, that nurses a child, that I raise the Yidden, that I'm responsible for all of their things. So what is Moshe Rabbeinu really saying here? Shezehu, the reason why he uses all these expressions is because that's where the source of all the neshamas are. Shem Klalis Yisrael. All the Yidden are all over Machshava, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama on that level is kailul, the makar of all Yidden. So that's the taich of Chad B'dara. Chad B'dara says that Chad, she'olav oimid kol hadayr, that all other Yidden, so taka their lower neshamas and all their avodah that they do in their level here in Biyah and in the lower worlds, in the lower levels, so they're all included in the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. The same is also true regarding this pashtus of Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu reaches in every generation the Siya Yisrael, the Nasi of the Yidden in every generation, Kol Nasi v'Nasi b'Deirei, every Nasi in every generation, Ad l'Nasi Dereinu, until the Rebbe, the Nasi of our Deir. Aval Kol HaNeshamis sheB'Deir, Heim Neshamis de Biyah. But Take, the mocker of all the neshamas is connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the essence of the neshama of every single yid. But the avodah b'poil of every yid is in his place in biyah. You take the koyach from the Rebbe and where the neshama is kolol from, where the neshama comes from, and you apply it and you bring it down. Dafkin biyah. Va'alei nemar, and regarding all the neshamas, it says levushin tekinas line the minay parchan neshmasin levnei nasha. That the levushim of biyah, that's the source of the neshamas in the world, the rave of the neshamas in the world. Levnei nasha, human beings. Doesn't mean women. It means Mamer Basi Ligani in middle of Sif Daled, and this contrast is on page Tez Zayin. We're holding where it says Hamshich Mamer. So the Friedrich Rabbi here in this chelik of the Mamer brought the Indian of neshamas, speaking about the Gilui and the Spashtos of Eirin Seif Lamata Din Tachlis, and Lamata Din Tachlis refers to the Levushin, which is Biyah. And Friedrich Rabbi brings in this that it says in the Zoyar that the Levushin Minaya Parchan Nishmasan Levnei Nasha. That's the source of the neshamas in the world. And the Friedrich Rabbi says, Raiv of the neshamas in the world are neshamas the Biyah. Why is the Friedrich Rabbi bringing in this Indian here? It seems like a side subject. So the reason is because everything that we're speaking about in this Hamshich is all to discuss the Avodah of the neshamas in this world. The Avodah of the Yidden, there the whole Kavanah. The Kavanah is to make the Diri B'Tachteinim in the world. So therefore he's teaching us how this applies to the neshamas as well. That the neshamas are also part of the Lamata Adin Tachlis, and the neshamas are dafka the ones that fulfill the shlichus here in this world. That's b'chlalas to nekuda that the Friedrich Rebbe is saying. So the Rebbe now continues to explain the next keta in the Maimah of the Friedrich Rebbe. Mamshich ba Maimah, the Friedrich Rebbe continues and says, Elo shebibiyah gufe, however, we're on page Tez Zayin, next page. Elo shebibiyah gufe, in the worlds of Biyah itself, Hine neshamis heim pnimius. The neshamis are the pnimius of the worlds. Umalachim chitzonius. The malachim are the chitzonius of the world. And v'oilemis, the existence of the worlds themselves, hem chitzonius de chitzonius. They're the external of the external aspect of existence. So the Rebbe over here will address why the Friedrich Rebbe is getting into all of this. The reason why the Friedrich Rebbe is talking about this, why are we getting into this whole discussion regarding the three aspects of Malachim versus the Neshamis, which are Pnimius, and the world which is Chetzonius? How's Negea here, all these things? I mean, the emphasis Bechlal, the fact that the Friedrich Rebbe got involved with the Indian of Neshamis was a side point. That he was talking about Lamata Din Tachlis, he speaks about the Levushim of Biyah. So it tells you part of those levushim of biyah is also the neshamas. Why are we bringing up neshamas as a prat in this Indian of lamata din tachlis? Because the whole hamshich is speaking about the Indian of neshamas dafke. So it's negeya to speak about how this applies to the neshamas as well. Or maybe even more so, I mentioned a few days ago that the Friedrich Rebbe wants to point out and explain this Indian of the roiv and neshamas. Are neshamas the biyah because dafke then are they able to make the diri b'tachteinim. But the continuation of the discussion, these details here about the neshamas versus malachim versus the elamis, that there are three levels: pnimius, chitzonius, dichitzonius. Why is this discussion negeya? It seems like just going off on a tangent. So the Rabbi explains that this as well is relevant here in the hamshich. If you're looking at what the main point of the whole hamshich is. Because the point of this Mamer of Basi Ligani is Shatach l'si l'shtamish b'ha oitzer k'dei shaneshama tuchal amalish l'chusa b'ayla. Where are we going with? Even though we're in the middle of discussing the Indian of Eirin Seif Lamata Din Tachlis, but you can't forget what's the main point of where this Mamer is going to. We only got into the point of Eirin Seif Lamata Din Tachlis because we're coming to explain the big oitzer, the treasure of revelation that the Eibishter gives every single yid in order to fulfill his shlichus in the world. What's the shlichus in the world? To transform, to turn the world, to take the atzei shittim oimdim, that to take the world itself. That from the shitta, from the shtus of the world, and from the sheker of the world, to transform it into the atzei shittim oimdim and the krashim of the Mishkan. That's what the teichen of the Samshich is about. And Elamai, there's the Pekidei Achayil, Then there's the Anshe Chayil, the simple foot soldiers that have a hard time fulfilling this Aveda. They have to fight out there in the battlefield, and they're the ones that are actually conquering the territory. They engage with the Sheker and the Shtos of the world. So therefore the Eibishter provides for them a revelation of Eitzer, the Nitzachon. The Nitzachon is dafka with the Yidden here below in this world. That's the inyan of the Aveda. Speaks about this, the Kadosh Baruch Hu Ezrei. Yeah. So if that's the point where we're going with this Hamshich, so now the question becomes, so here, if the Friedrich Rebbe is saying that the Neshamas are also part of Biyah, then the source of the Neshamas, where are they peireach from? Where do they come from? They come from the Levushim of Biyah. Veheim Nefradim. And they are, if so, part of a level which is separated from godliness. So even though the shayrish of the neshama l'mayla comes from a higher place, but the neshama comes through these levels, and there's yiride, and there's a slapshus. It's not just passing through Olam Mizbiyah. It becomes affected by Olam Mizbiyah. That this now is the personality of the neshama. The darg of the neshama is it sort of can recognize, it can connect, it can give credibility to something which is not godliness. A neshama that comes from Atzilus, an existence which is not godliness, doesn't exist in its life. It doesn't know what this means. It can't recognize anything that's not Getlichkeit. That's the idea of Atzilus. A neshama of Atzilus, even when it's in Olam Hazeh, doesn't recognize Olam Hazeh b'chlal. Neshama is the biyah, though, come down to a level, to a place where the Gili Elikos is already mutzumtzum, to the point that it recognizes that there's something other than the Eibush there, and that defines the personality of the neshamas as well. So the question is, if so, how are these neshamas going to fulfill their shlichus in the world to transform the sheker and the shtus of the world? If the sheker and the shtus of the world is something real, so they should get affected by it. It could draw down the neshama. The neshamas are the ones that have to be here in the world to elevate and transform the entire world. So Mikol Makayim, and nevertheless, that's what the Friedrich Rebbe here has to give us a hezbollah for this. Hine dafgal yodam. That the Yidden, although they are sort of part of the reality of Nefradim, at the same time they're able to come into the place, into the world where the Sheker and the Shtus exists, and not get Nespal at all. When do you not get Nespal from something? If something has a significance, its existence is significant in your eyes, so you're drawn to it, you get Nespal by it. You can't necessarily, you don't have the power to elevate it and to transform it into Kedusha. The neshamas have to be completely removed, l'chayre, from the inyan of Olam Hazeh in order to be able to transform and elevate Olam Hazeh. This is sort of two opposite points, l'chayre, b'negei to being able to make a dira b'tachtainim, just like it is practically. In order for us to make a dira b'tachtainim in this world, if you remain secluded and separated from Olam Hazeh, you're never engaging with the tachtan of the world, how are you going to make a dira b'tachtainim? The Eibusha created the world in such a way, that a person has to go out into the world for his parnasa, for whatever else it is, in order to make a dira b'tachtainim in this world. That's on one hand. At the same time, though, if when you enter into the world, you become part of the problem, you become part of the metzias of the world, so you're not able to be mashpia, you become mushpa, you become elevated. The point is that you should be in the world, and yet you should not get affected by the metzias of the world at all. Anyone want a coffee? I don't know. Don't ask me. Okay. That's the shayla over here. So just like this is practically that for a yid to make a dira b'tachtainim, it sort of demands of a yid to be sort of two opposites at the same time. The Rebbe teached us b'negei to the malachim that Yaakov sent. We're going to speak soon a lot about malachim. That's why I'm mentioning this here. But the Rebbe said b'negei to malachim, that malachim mamish, which means that on one hand the malachim have to be there in the lowest place, in the place of Esav, and at the same time mamish. Practically, b'poil, they're there, but where they be'emes, they're not affected. They have no shaykhs to Esav. If you go down to Esav, you have a shaykhs to Esav. How are you elevating Esav? The opinion of Esav, the culture of Esav, the attitude of Esav is going to affect you. You have to be there 100%, and yet at the same time be completely connected to what's above and not get affected by the place you're in. So over here, regarding the neshamas. So on one hand, the neshamas, the biyah. Neshamas Dibiyah means that they're part of the reality of Nifradim, of a Metzias, of a world that sees itself, that it exists. And that there's various levels to Nifradim. You have the Nifradim of Bria, and you have the Nifradim of Asiya, and Asiya Agashmis. They're not the same, they're different types of Nifradim. But whatever it is, the Neshamas are part of the Metzias of Nifradim. And l'chayr, it's necessary. If the Neshamas weren't part of this reality of Nifradim, so then how could the Neshamas relate to the Metzias of their Avodah? And at the same time, though, if that would be the case, the Neshamas are shaykh to Nifradim, it would be impossible for them to fulfill the shlichus. At the same time, we have to say that the Neshamas are not nispal from anything, and they can go into the world, not just not nispal, but they could actually enter into the world and transform and elevate the world. So what's this koyach the Neshamas have? So therefore, the Friedrich Rebbe comes and explains that in every single world, who are the neshamas? They are the pnimius of the existence of that world. So even though taka the neshamas have a shaykhis to the pirud, but there's a pnimius of what that pirud is about. What does it mean, pnimius? Whenever you say the word pnimius means what's the godly intention in this? What does the Eibishter want with this pirud? You look at the pirud, b'chitzaynius, what's the pirud? B'chitzaynius, the pirud is that I'm here, that this is it, that this is a something. In the world of Bria, it's margish that there's a something here. That's b'chitzaynius, what the idea of pirud is. Kipshutai, pirud. What's the pnimius of the pirud? The Eibishter created this pirud. It's all a certain hamshach of alakos, meaning that the Eibishter has a plan and a point with this pirud. That pnimius of the pirud, which is godly, the godly kavan of the pirud, that's the shayrish of the neshamas. So the fact that the neshamas have a shaykhis to the pirud of biyah is not the pirud the way we see the pirud b'chitzaynius, but the kavan of the pirud, the kavan of the Eibishter to make a dir b'tachtainim. That's what the neshamas have a shaykhis to. And what are the worlds themselves? If you look at the entity of the world itself, which is the place where the Eibishter wants to bring the Shechina into, to make the Diri B'Tachtainim, what's the world itself? Hem Chitzayni is the Chitzaynius. That's the external of the external existence within this level of Pirud. Right. Okay, but now the problem becomes, if so, so what have we accomplished over here with the Neshamas being part of these lower worlds in order that the Neshamas should be able to fulfill their shlichus in the world? But if you're saying that the neshamas are shaykh to the pnimius of the ilamis, and the ilamis themselves are chitzaynius, the chitzaynius, so again there's a complete disconnect between who the neshamas are and the shlichus in the world, which is chitzaynius, the chitzaynius. How do the neshamas relate? How does their aveda of who the neshamas are? How could they connect to the mitzias of the world? The chitzaynius of the world senses itself that I'm here, that I'm a something. The pnimius, which is the neshamas, what do they sense? The Metzias of the world is nothing, Shema nothing. It seems to be something. It presents itself. There's a Pesa'inian of a Nifra there. This Nifra is the Eibishter. It's just an expression of what the Eibishter wanted. There is no Chitzenius of the world. But the Kavanah of Diri B'Tachtainim is to bring the Eibishter there, in that place where the world feels itself that I'm here. So if the Neshama, whenever it enters into the world, it always sees right away what the world really is, what the pnimius of the world is, that it's created by the Eibishter. So you're never able to engage with that aspect of the world, which is not feel its creation from the Eibishter. The Chitzani is the Chitzanius of the world, right? So therefore we have the Malachim. So the Malachim come to assist the Neshamas in their Aveda. Ulachein haNeshamas sheim pnimiyim, the Neshamas which are the pnimius of the world that sense the truth of what the world is. So again, even though they're shaykh to the Olam is biyah, but the pnimius of Olam is biyah, how could they be effective to fulfill their shlichus within the Olam, to actually reach this low, to come and to engage into the lowest aspects of the world? Shehem chitzaynius dichitzaynius, the lowest aspect of the world that taka senses that I'm here. How is that? Be'emtzos hamalachim. It's through the malachim that serve as an intermediary. The malachim bring the aveda of the neshamas into the world. Malachim shluchim. The malachim are the shluchim. Shehem chitzaynius haylam, and they are the chitzaynius of the world. No, so you may be thinking, what does this mean? How are the malachim our? You have a connection to malachim? when you try whatever avodah you do in the world, it comes through the malachim. I mean, just first of all, benegay to the pshat in the Friediger Rebbe's Mamer, this is a whole new pshat. It's a meridige new pshat over what the Friediger Rebbe is saying. You learn the Friediger Rebbe's Mamer b'pashtus. How do you understand what the Friediger Rebbe is saying? Because he's talking about the mitzias of Olam Mizbiyah in relation to Eirei Lamata Din Tachlis, Biyah is the Lamata. So he's elaborating in details regarding the Lamata. That Lamata has Malachim, it has Neshamis, it has Elamis, there's various aspects to the Lamata Din Tachlis. What's the problem with elaborating on all these details? The Rebbe says, no. Friediger Rebbe is not stam going on and on, this detail, that detail. It's negeya for the kavana. And when we speak about the three levels, pnimius, chitzenius, and chitzenius, the chitzenius, it's not just like line them up. This is the top, this is the next, and this is the third. Like before, we were speaking about the teva. Tachtim, shnim, shlishim, the different levels. They're connected to each other. There's a hemshich here. The malachim are the ones that bring the avodah of the neshamis into the world below. There's a connection. The Amos is thinking about it now. I'm not saying it's parallel to what the Rebbe said before, but it is sort of similar to the Vart of the Baal Shem Tov. When the Baal Shem Tov speaks about Tachtim, Shnim, Shlishim, that Tzayar Tasal Teva means that the neshamis, through davening, connect the Eilamis, the lowest level of the Teva, with Elokos, which is the highest floor of the Teva. So it's also sort of to connect the three floors together. But over there, the Neshamis serve as the link between Eilamis and Elokos. Over here, regarding the shlichus of the Neshamis in the world, the Neshamis are the ones that could fulfill their shlichus through the Malachim. The Malachim bring the Eibusha down in the world. So it's a new pshat in the Friediger Rebbe's Mamer. Just one more point. I'm sorry, 1 second. This is this idea of Malachim, Shluchim, you're familiar with. This is brought usually in the opposite sense. Usually the opposite. How does a Yid fulfill his shlichus in this world? L'chayda, we have a problem. The Eibusha gives us mitzvahs, which is Ma'asim Gashmiyim, and through the Ma'asim Gashmiyim, we're supposed to connect back to the Eibusha. So the problem is, the levushim of the Ma'asim mitzvahs, which is Megushim, which is here in this world, how are they going to fly up? How are they going to connect back to the Eibusha? The answer is, the Malachim lift up. They're the ones that lift up our Aveda, our davening, and all of our Aveda to bring it up Lamaila. So it brings always the same, the Malachim are Shluchim, but always in the opposite. The Malachim take us up. Here the Rebbe is saying the Malachim bring us down. That the Neshamis are so high, the Malachim bring us down. Which with Pashtus means, the Gabi, the Gof of a Yid, and the Gabi, the Ma'asam mitzvahs, or the davening that a Yid davens in this world with his physical mouth, saying the words of davening, the Malachim lift us up. The Gabi, the Neshama of who the Yid is, so then the Malachim are lower than us. And the Malachim are the ones that connect our Neshama to the Chitzenius of the world, that our Aveda should actually penetrate into the lowest elements of the world. That's the Chiddush here. Eilim v'yardim boy. That's the two different aspects of the Malachim. Okay.
Another thing is that they're lifting up Yidden through and carrying up their Avodah.
That's usually, it speaks about carrying up the Aveda. Here he's talking about bringing us down, bringing down the Neshamas into the world.
I didn't understand the last point. It said that the Neshamas are, they sort of in sync with Panemius. They are Panemius, so why can't they understand the Yibshut Kavana perfectly? Why can't they just, it's like a person goes to work. Is the Tachlis is, to finance the family, so I need to go to work, I do it. So here they understand, so why do they need the Malachim? Why can't they just be involved in the world?
Okay, so go to Shaila. So the point is, because the Kavanah of Dir B'Tachtainim is to bring the Eibishter into a place where there is no Tachlis that the world feels at all. When you go to work and a person feels the Tachlis of what this job is for, why he has this job, and the specific work that he's doing, what is he trying to accomplish, he's not doing something without a Tachlis. He's doing something with a Tachlis. Adarabah, the more he feels the Tachlis, the more fit he is for the work that he's doing. But by Dir B'Tachtainim, it's a funny thing. It's Punkt Fakert. Where's the real Dir B'Tachtainim? The real Dir B'Tachtainim is in a Tachten She'ein Tachten Lamata Heimenu. How do you define a Tachten She'ein Tachten Lamata Heimenu? The element of existence of the world that senses that it has a purpose. The element of the existence of the world that feels that the Eibusha created it. Forget about purpose, even without that. Just the fact that it feels that I'm a nivra, that the Eibusha created me, and I have some kind of a teichen, even more, I have some kind of a teichen, that's not the real tachten. The real tachten is the chitzenius of the world that just feels nothing, feels no connection to anything. It's just here, it exists. The etzem gashmis and the chumrius of the world, without any connection to any purpose whatsoever. And there, in that element of existence, You have to be megala that this is part of Holocaust. The Eibush is here as well. So you have to be able to connect to a place where the emes of the Eibush is not going to be sensed there at all, which it's not going to be felt. So if when the neshama comes into the world and the neshama does a mitzvah and the neshama senses what this chayfetz gashmi is, the neshama senses the hide of this animal was only created in order that it could be used for tefillin. The hide of the behemoth, it's not shemitzias. What is this hide of the behemoth? It doesn't exist b'chlal. It's a hechet timtza for me to be able to put on tefillin. So what does that mean? The neshama's contact with the world is with what aspect of the existence of the world? The aspect of the hide of the behemoth, which is fit and it could be utilized for a mitzvah. But the etzem oir itself that just is here and exists and doesn't feel any purpose in it, that aspect of the neshama can never connect to. So the neshama has to have some link through the malachim to be able to connect to the chitzenius of the world to make that dira b'tachtainim. That's what it seems like the Rebbe is saying. Again, I don't know if this is pshat, maybe yeah, maybe no, but it seems like that's what the Rebbe is saying here.
But here it says that the neshama is piled on the island because it's previous.
Yeah.
And the Tanya it says that the neshama is piled on the world because Hashem Israel.
Kadosh Baruch Hu Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Different than Yana, may I hear? Okay. The neshama, not to get distracted by different things. Okay, this is different than Yana. I hear what you're saying. Okay, the next chelik of the Mamer, the Rebbe will speak about the Torah of the Magid, Benegeit HaMalachim, as we'll see. Okay, we'll have to see what's Hashem. Where, in other words, the Rebbe is going to explain this. Where are the Malachim helping us? Yeah. What's in what sense? How? What's going on over here? Will be explained in Hashem. Okay. Oh, started late today.